Hello, everybody. My name is Phoenix, and today I am going to talk about something a little bit different from my usual discussions here on this channel. I have to admit, I have not really been playing Dead by Daylight for the last several months. There are a few reasons as to why, but for the most part, I've simply just taken an interest in something new. Fair warning, this is likely going to just be a massive yap session, so if that bores you, I'm sorry, not sorry. To explain my background with Dead by Daylight, I started playing way back in 2018, sometime after Clown had released. It was June of 2018, I believe. I'd originally gotten into it to play with a friend group that I spent a lot of time with and regularly gamed with. And honestly, the original intent was only to play custom games with each other. I really had no interest in doing public games. But I immediately loved the aesthetic and the asymmetrical nature of the game. It was captivating, it was simple enough at its core, but it had lots of depth within itself that made me want to learn and continue playing and improving. There were some familiar faces that I had recognized as a casual fan of horror media who could look past the iconic Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, or Leatherface. A few of the characters that I grew to like over time were Myers, Pig, and the Wraith, at least in the beginning of my time with Dead by Daylight. In an effort to learn more, I began watching content creators that were popular back in the day, such as Hybrid Panda, True Talent, and Arditha. Through Arditha's classic content, I was exposed to nurse gameplay, and at the time, crossplay between platforms did not yet exist. PC and console players could not play together, and they were locked to their own respective platforms. It was common belief that nurse gameplay on console, I play on PlayStation for reference, was next to impossible. I decided that this was a character I wanted to get better at, and I ultimately stepped up to the challenge. And that is exactly what I did. It was a tough journey. Old nurse on old console frame rate was not for the faint of heart, but it was a challenge that I enjoyed, and slowly I grew more confident and became more lethal in my games. I started to get messages from people giving me huge props for playing a difficult killer on a difficult platform. I even had people message me asking me to play against their friend group so they could practice playing against nurse. I had recognition from other people in the console community, as it was much smaller back in the day and you would often run into the same people. As my confidence grew, I began making content myself. I started to stream on Twitch, I uploaded my own videos to YouTube, though never really got much traction. It was a fun hobby that I very much enjoyed. I liked chatting with people while streaming, and the sense of community that I had was very healing in a time where I very much needed the confidence booster. I played Dead by Daylight for the better part of 7 years, and still play to this day, with my most recent killer focus being the Singularity, which I talk about a lot on this channel. For all of my, shall we say, excessive time that I have in Dead by Daylight, I never really considered myself very good at the game, and never pursued anything close to playing the game at a high level. Any attempts to dip my toe into competitive gameplay resulted in total humiliation for me, and my confidence was beyond shattered. Although I did some small scrims with the team for a very short time, I never really stuck with it. So I mostly partook in the game as a casual enjoyer who happened to have a lot of hours and a lot of knowledge. At this time, my desire to play the game has certainly gone downhill for probably the last 6 to 8 months, with me picking up a newfound interest and, dare I say, treading into the territory of being a hyperfixation. So, to explain how I even started playing Roblox, it was not something that I really grew up with or was interested in for the majority of its lifespan, but my partner did begin to explore the world of Roblox ASIMs on his own and convinced me to try a few of them with him. I had heard of Roblox through spoof games like Dead by Roblox, which DVD content creators had made videos of before for the funny, but didn't know much about it outside of that. I was very hesitant to start picking the game up since Roblox is notorious for having a very young demographic, and that is something I felt strange about since I am considered old by gamer standards. Was it socially acceptable for me to even consider playing on this platform? My partner had no problems with it, So I set my own reservations aside and decided to give it a try. We started by playing games like Violence District, which is basically just a carbon copy of Dead by Daylight, and I feel it was a good way to transition to the platform since the gameplay loop was so familiar to me. At the time, he was very into Pillar Chase 2 and Outcome Memories, and I did try those games, but they just didn't click with me. I never really found a character that I liked, and they were fun in short bursts, but I could only stomach playing the games for an hour or so before getting burned out and overwhelmed. He had started to play Forsaken well before I did, and when I decided to jump in and give that game a try, my first game was not great. I had no idea what I was doing. The stamina management mechanic was a new concept for me that I had no idea how to deal with. I had zero idea where to run to within the maps, and it was generally just a really bad time. Not to mention the growing pains of any new game, such as not knowing what characters had what abilities and how to counter or deal with them. But that didn't deter me, and I kept playing. Initially, I played strictly Survivor, since I felt like even attempting to play Killer would have just been another public humiliation ritual. I was also playing with my partner, who had more time in the game and was not on the newly implemented new player servers at the time. So off the bat, I was playing with people that had much more experience than I did. At first, I only played with him, but then I decided to start playing on my own time, and I've put roughly 200 hours into the game since late November, early December. Probably midway through the Halloween event and before the Christmas event had started. Funny enough, the thing that made me the most interested in playing Forsaken to begin with was the soundtrack. Although it's not considered a good song by most of the community, Domino Effect was the first song I heard that piqued my interest, and I started grinding currency to unlock 1X because I really wanted to play him. I had never really vibed with projectile-based killers in the past, but his music and his aesthetic was enough to make me want to play him. Although I reached my goal and did eventually unlock the character, I didn't really click with his playstyle. I wasn't a fan of the RNG of his projectiles, and I wasn't nearly experienced enough to have a good idea of survivor pathing to really hit prediction shots. So, the killer just wasn't for me at the end of the day. Then, I unlocked John Doe on a whim and started to play with him, and oh my god. This killer clicked with me almost immediately. Everything about him, from his lore to his cosmetics, music, all the way to his gameplay, made me feel like I found a character that I haven't connected with since playing the nurse in Dead by Daylight. I wanted to become better with this killer in particular. At this point, I feel the same cycle I experienced with DBD has started again. I find a character I love and try to really hone those skills. I found content creators that I enjoy watching and feel like I learn from. Finding a character I enjoy is super important to me and probably the biggest part of what keeps me invested in a game. The loop of both Forsaken and Dead by Daylight are very simple on paper with their most basic explanations. In Dead by Daylight, there are 5 generators on the map that the survivors have to complete, which powers 2 exit gates that they have to make one final push to open and then successfully escape. The killer's objective is to stop survivors from doing said generators, and to successfully hit the survivors twice, with some exceptions, to put them into the dying state. When the survivors are in the dying state, they can be picked up, carried, and placed on meat hooks that are scattered around the map. Killers must hook each survivor a total of 3 times before they are fully removed from the round, or they must be on hook for a total of 70 seconds to fully die. Survivors do rely on each other to pull themselves off of the hook. Each match lasts roughly 10 to 15 minutes, but can go on for longer or shorter, depending on various factors. Forsaken's gameplay loop is, in my opinion, much more simple, at least in its most basic form. Each standard round starts with a base time of 4 minutes on the clock. Survivors have to survive the round until the timer runs out. The killer has to kill all the survivors before the timer runs out. Survivors do have objectives around the map in the form of generators, but unlike Dead by Daylight, they are not a requirement to complete. When survivors complete generators or solve the puzzles, it does shave some time off of the clock, reducing how long the survivors have to stay alive for. When killers successfully take a survivor out of the game, it adds more time to the clock. Survivors don't have multiple chances. There is no 3 strikes, you're out, like how the hook system works. When you die, you're back to the lobby. Matches seem to average anywhere from 5 to 6 minutes, but can be shorter or longer. The idea of the timer definitely stressed me out at first, as I wasn't really used to being on a time limit to do what I needed to do. But the more I play, the more I actually have grown to appreciate the short time that matches can be. There's no real sense of gen rushing, as survivors can slam all the generators and reduce the time, but if the killer is consistently getting kills, it will still balance out and not really matter all that much. There is nothing that can draw a game out to a painfully long affair. There is no point at all to holding down a 3-gen like in Dead by Daylight. There is nothing to slow generators down, and there is nothing to regress generator progress, since the gens are not the win condition of the game. There's not really any stealth in the game, as most killers have some sort of aura reading built into their kit, and they also don't lose stamina when there are not survivors close to them. So this acts as a sort of in-game tracking ability akin to something like Whispers as the Dead by Daylight equivalent. The fact that matches can be so short makes having a rough game a little bit more bearable, honestly. The moment your game ends, you're right into the next match. There's no time to dwell on it. You're also in a lobby with the same people on a rotating role change that is determined by what Forsaken calls malice, which is earned through completing generators and successfully landing your survivor abilities. So everyone eventually gets their turn on killer against the team, unless they purposely have the role disabled. The better you play on survivor, the higher your chances of playing killer the next round. There really isn't a way to main killer since you can't load into the game as your chosen role. It's whatever your turn is next. And I kind of like that aspect of the game. It's rare to see someone that never plays killer, so there is much less of the us versus them mentality that permeates the Dead by Daylight community. There is far less of killer is OP or survivor is brain dead going around from what I've seen in game. Everyone knows that killer can be tough against very good survivors. Since there is a good chance that you'll face those same survivors again the next time you play killer, if they remain in the same lobby, you have a chance to adapt to what they do, learn from how they play, and try again. There is also some downtime in the lobby between rounds where you can chat, emote, or just chill. The same person might have run laps around you on your killer round, emoted at you to taunt you for a failed hit, then 3 minutes later you're dancing with them in the lobby. There is just this weird sense of camaraderie that comes from mingling in the lobby, and it makes taking losses feel much less painful. Both games have a level of depth to them that is added to by their character rosters. Dead by Daylight's depth comes from its huge assortment of perks, and the grind to unlock them and to mix and match them on whatever character you want. Survivors in Dead by Daylight are basically just skins and have nothing unique about them individually. Survivors in Forsaken, however, come with their own unique set of abilities that make them an individual character with their own learning curve and challenges. There's also a sort of class system that gives each character a role to typically fill. To me, Forsaken's system of having each character be unique is much more interesting. I never have to guess which survivor has what ability or perk. I already know what that survivor has in their kit and can plan accordingly when I'm playing killer. Dead by Daylight's perks also, most of the time, don't have any sort of indicator that they have a specific perk equipped. When you load into a Dead by Daylight match, you have no way of knowing what perks are in play. You just have to expect that everyone is running what is the strongest or meta at the time. I can anticipate that the survivor I'm chasing may have Dead Hard, so I'll breathe down their neck after they've been hooked once to try and bait it out. But for all I know, I'm wasting my precious time baiting a perk they may or may not have. I won't know unless I anticipate it and see them use it, or take the risk of smacking them and falling for it and losing distance and losing my chase. No! Damn it! I played that so well! On the Forsaken side of things, I know the moment I see a guest 1337 in my lobby that he is going to have a block ability, and that he is going to probably charge me off the staircase he's emoting at the top of. The predictability might seem more boring to some, but to me, the fact that I know what I'm up against and what good players are capable of, and the fact that I actually have the opportunity to outplay, outskill, and outmaneuver is much more fun and intuitive. It also really showcases the skills of each individual player. A good guest player won't be so predictable with his block into a parry, and he'll likely use his charge to give whatever teammate I'm chasing more distance, rather than using it for no reason at all. Knowing what each survivor does also makes target priority much more straightforward than it does in Dead by Daylight. I don't have to guess and dedicate time to know which survivor is the weakest link on the team. In Forsaken, I already know that I should definitely be prioritizing taking out the supportive characters that are squishier and have no defensive abilities like Dusukar, Builderman, or Elliot. It's the job of the sentinels on the team like Guest, Shedletsky, and the newly added John Doe to protect those squishy characters, since they do have some defensive abilities and higher health pools, making them a lower priority for me to direct my attention to. The very concept of having a sentinel class means that there will be very little downtime. Oftentimes, those players will spend the whole time trying to harass the killer, and unless they're very good at their character, can be targeted and taken out. And the short match lengths means that the rounds move at a very fast pace. There will hardly be moments when I'm playing as killer that I'm not actively chasing or pressuring someone. Dead by Daylight has long, drawn-out moments of downtime, particularly on the survivor end, where they can just do generators or stealth around the map and waste the killer's time. Forsaken doesn't really have this problem, although it does exist in the form of survivors sitting in a corner emoting all game. Engagement with both sides is, for the most part, mandatory, especially for those playing the tankier characters, as their whole job is to help their team and protect the weaker characters. Supports are not typically going to be directly in the line of fire, but they are usually hovering around ready to, well, support. And if they're caught out of position, it could be a quick kill for the killer. I like that there is not really any immersive gameplay in Forsaken. Less downtime on killer means more opportunities to get value out of my power. Killers are very much the same as they are in Dead by Daylight in the sense that they have unique abilities that set them apart from each other. The roster is not as large as the killer roster in Dead by Daylight, but every character has a unique identity, like the survivors, that gives them their own strengths, weaknesses, skill floors, and skill ceilings. You like dash slop killers? Try Cool Kid or Noli. Do you like killers that revolve around snowballing and growing in power as the match goes on? Guess 666 might be for you. So I have to take this opportunity to really gush about John Doe's kit, because he has such a unique set of abilities that don't play like anything I've seen in other games, and I absolutely adore him. He is considered a trap-style killer, as one of his abilities is literally a trap in the form of a puddle you place on the ground, and if a survivor accidentally steps in it, they take damage, are slowed, and John himself receives a speed boost when one of these traps are activated. These can function like area denial tools to keep survivors out of places you don't want them to go, or you can use them to shut down annoying looping areas. His main identity revolves around these spikes that he can summon from the ground. They come out of the ground in a wave, kind of like Pyramid Head's ranged attack, and the player has some level of control of where they go. And they don't have to be limited to a straight line in front of John, so you can use them to box a survivor into an area that leads to a guaranteed kill. You can use them to create a barrier between a hovering teammate and your current target. He sounds like a zoner or a trapper on paper, and for the most part he is. But he is not limited to this trap playstyle, which is what makes him so interesting. The spikes also do damage on direct hits. So this has led to what people call Sniper Doe, using these spikes combined with his built-in aura reading ability to land hits from crazy distances. Good survivors won't let you zone them into an area that you can trap them in, but if you're confident in controlling the spikes, you can still land hits on them from further away, meaning that it doesn't matter how well they manage their distance or stamina. They just have to hope that you miss. I think his malleable playstyle appeals to me in the same way that Singularity does. To be successful, you have to be smart, and it's not something mechanical like landing a good dash ability or a projectile. You have to outwit the survivors and force them out of position into places that benefit you. He's also not locked into one play style and can be very versatile. He's just such a well-designed killer, and I feel like it's been such a long time since I've had so much fun with learning and improving at a character. John Doe single-handedly keeps me playing Forsaken because his skill ceiling is outrageously high, and there's always a higher bar to reach for, and I'm always learning something every game. I feel like I'm always improving, and I'm able to face stronger and stronger teams. Forsaken also has a stamina management system that adds additional depth to the chase. While Dead by Daylight uses things like windows and a limited number of pallets to act as chase extenders, Forsaken has nothing of the sort. There are no resources or defensive options on the map except for the map itself, and your teammates to help you in chase. The only way that you will run the killer around for the whole game is to manage your stamina better than the killer. You have to use the map to your advantage and hope you have good sentinels on your team. Both the survivors and the killer have a stamina meter to keep tabs on, and this is not a mechanic that is exclusive to Forsaken. Most asymmetrical games on the Roblox platform utilize this system. Watching high-level competitive Forsaken gameplay is fascinating because the survivors know how to coordinate their abilities to help their team and maintain distance on the killer consistently. It's actually insane and very fun to watch. A decent survivor will feel untouchable, and while it can be frustrating, it's just a skill set that I can respect and try to learn from. I never feel like I'm simply being out-perked in Forsaken because someone decided to slap on the meta perks that counter my entire killer or my entire build. If I lose, it genuinely is a skill issue and was probably multiple mistakes on my part. Maybe that survivor just had better stamina management than me. Maybe they know how to play against my chosen killers so my abilities aren't as effective. Maybe they have good team synergy with the other survivors. Maybe my target priority wasn't great. There are mistakes that I can adapt to and try to correct in my own gameplay. It makes losses much less frustrating and feel less like RNG bullshit. Speaking of RNG, maps are also very consistent in Forsaken and don't have random tiles every round. They're always the same every time you load in. There are definitely bad maps that favor one side or the other, but they will never have randomly generated structures that are inconsistent. So sometimes you do get a bad map for your role or for your character, but you can still have an idea of what structures are strong, where generator spawns are, and where survivors will typically try to path to. You are never going to be caught off guard by a map, and the match will not be predetermined by random tile generation. One thing that both games do have in common is their sense of progression through cosmetic items. In the case of Dead by Daylight, players can prestige their characters through the in-game currency known as blood points, which is a currency that you can only really earn by playing the game. You earn blood points at the end of every round, and the amount that you earn is based on the things that you did during the match, such as saving survivors off a hook, completing generator progress, and being chased by the killer, stunning them with pallets, or, in the case of the killer, hooking survivors, chasing survivors, breaking pallets, and typically just using your power. These blood points can be spent on any character at any time to obtain items on survivor and add-ons for killer that modify your power. You spend these points by completing something in the character menu called a blood web that starts at level 1 and goes all the way up to level 50. Once level 50, the max level, is reached, you have the option to prestige your character. You start at prestige 0, and then you can spend enough points to go all the way up to prestige 100, which is the maximum level. All of this explanation just to say that, in concept, you could earn blood points and spend them on whatever character you want, even without ever actually touching or playing that character. There isn't really anything in-game that shows a player's dedication to their main, with the exception of the bloody cosmetics you get at prestige levels 4, 5, and 6. The only thing you get when you achieve prestige 100 is a badge that you don't even see until the final scoreboard after the round is already over. And they recently added the addition of a player icon, which, again, you only see on your own home screen or on the final scoreboard. This long-winded explanation of Dead by Daylight's progression system, only to say that, in theory, you could spend all your blood points and prestige a character without ever putting a single second into them. Yes, most people are inclined to prestige their main characters, but I can think of more than one example of people that just want to collect as many P100 characters as possible, as some sort of completionist goal, I suppose. Prestige in no way proves a player's skill with their character, just that they happen to spend a lot of in-game points on them. Forsaken's character progression manifests mostly in the form of milestone cosmetics that are earned through playing the character and earning experience points in-game through specific things, such as successfully landing abilities, achieving kills, completing gens, and winning your games. There is in-game currency similar to blood points, but it is purely for spending in the shop, which is how you purchase other characters, cosmetics, and emotes. Milestones are earned at levels 25, 50, 75, and 100, and they can only be unlocked by playing that specific character and earning XP. They are not cosmetics that can be purchased. For the longest time, I wanted something in Dead by Daylight that a player could earn and show off in-game. Some kind of cosmetic item that could only be earned through reaching a specific goal, like a certain number of kills with that character or some similar achievement. Basically, I always wanted something that, if I loaded into a game against a character that had this special cosmetic, it put the fear of God into me. Because I know that person has put time and energy into their character and probably have some idea of what they're doing. Something that can be earned, not just purchased with points. Forsaken milestones achieve this for me, especially the legacy milestone cosmetics that are no longer obtainable. It's not always going to be some Giga Sweat that wipes the lobby in 2 minutes, but for the most part, I know when I load in against a legacy milestone for John Doe that they have not only played this character enough to earn his max level 100, but have also likely been playing him for a long time, long enough to have those retired cosmetics. I like the feeling of earning something that showcases how much time and effort I put into a character, and something that can be shown off in-game. You could make the argument that anyone can grind for these cosmetics, and you'd be right, some people just want to max level every character for the fun of the challenge, but they still have to actually play those characters to earn those levels. So to some extent, they have to learn the character and earn their way up to level 100. Overall, I definitely like Forsaken's system much better when it comes to character progression, and I appreciate that they reward players for some level of character mastery. I still consider myself a newcomer in the world of Forsaken, but I feel like I've picked up the game at a decent pace, and more importantly, I've enjoyed the challenges it brings and the new skill sets I've had to learn after spending so long with Dead by Daylight. Something that both games do very well is exposure to other medias. Dead by Daylight is famously referred to as the Smash Brothers of horror games, and is also sometimes called the Horror Hall of Fame, because of its ridiculous amount of crossover chapters. In my opinion, Dead by Daylight's licensed content is what has kept the game afloat for almost 10 years at this point. I know in my time with the game, if there was an upcoming chapter that was announced from an IP I didn't really know much about, I've enjoyed sitting down and researching, watching, or playing the source material. People who know me know I love Silent Hill, especially Silent Hill 2 above all else. I never would have been interested in the series as much as I am if it weren't for Dead by Daylight's crossover chapter that introduced Pyramid Head to the Entities realm. I never watched an episode of Tokyo Ghoul until Dead by Daylight released as a crossover chapter featuring Ken Kaneki as the killer. Every licensed chapter that has come around, I've always found myself watching those movies, those shows, or playing those games. Forsaken also has a plethora of crossover content. Most of it is crossover skins or cosmetics from other Roblox games, such as Die of Death, The Isle, and Flood Escape, among others. Being other Roblox games makes this content extremely accessible. Although some of them have challenges that must be completed in order to unlock the skins, a recent example being Narrator Noli, requiring you to complete a tower defense campaign on the highest difficulty and was notoriously difficult to achieve. My personal experience has drawn me to the various cosmetics that Forsaken has implemented that were inspired by the South Korean gacha RPG called Limbus Company. I had never even heard of this game before, but all it took for me to download and play the game myself was hearing the soundtrack, because the music in this game is phenomenal. Gas Harpoon is a cosmetic for John Doe, based very loosely on one of the major boss fights from Limbus Company. This is my personal favorite cosmetic, and many other people's too, for good reason. I don't really care if this makes me basic as fuck and doesn't fit the characters. This skin is amazing. I mean, just listen to this chase theme. Granted, the music is ripped straight from the Limbus soundtrack, but remixed by the Forsaken developers. This is just one example of the crossover collection from Limbus Company. The downside with Roblox crossovers is that they can be removed in the blink of an eye if the development teams decide they no longer want to work with each other anymore. That can also be viewed as a positive thing since Roblox development teams keep their own creative liberty and don't necessarily have to associate with anything that they don't want to. And as someone who has an art background, I really respect it. Okay, so I was in the middle of editing this video, and I did happen to see on Twitter that the composer of Obsession, which is Gas Harpoon's chase theme that I just spent time gushing about and talking positively about, as well as the lyrical version of the song known as Curiosity, is working towards having their work removed from the game since they no longer want to associate with Forsaken. I am honestly really bummed about this because the remix of the song is phenomenal, and it's something that I listen to frequently on my own time. But I want to reiterate my previous point that I appreciate and respect that artists do have that control over their media, and while I am incredibly sad about it likely going away, and I will be very heartbroken to see it go, I respect the artist and their wishes, and we'll just have to continue listening to the music outside of Forsaken. These are not AAA studios making games and trying to turn a profit for investors. These are just passionate gamers that are trying to create something that they want other people to enjoy, and are for the most part entirely self-managed. I can't believe how long it took me to respect the platform, because it's honestly incredible how much love these teams put into their games. I definitely want to keep playing Forsaken, and maybe dabble in some other ASIMs too. I have been partaking very casually in Bite by Night now that that's come out. But it's really been a breath of fresh air from Dead by Daylight, and I feel like it's really ignited my spark for gaming again. I even started getting back into making artwork a little bit. This has basically just been a huge rambling session about how much I like Forsaken, and honestly, I have zero regrets about doing it. If you listen to any of this, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know what the future is for this little humble channel of mine since it was created for Dead by Daylight, but only time will tell. Thanks again for watching, and have a great rest of your day.